Glitches! We all like them, except when we don't. Imagine how bad everybody else is if you're picking me. When you're dealing with technology, glitches are bound to happen. And the more complex the tech, the more frequent and potent these glitches become. Video games, being programs built out of hundreds upon thousands of equations and interactions, dependent on their developers to make sure they're functioning properly, are home to millions of glitches. One misread line of code, and suddenly the sky is alive! Unintended, though, doesn't always mean bad. That's what my parents told me. Sometimes an unintended interaction shows fans and the developers something they had never thought of before, and it ends up being rolled into the game proper. We've talked about glitches turned gameplay before, but I've since found even more examples that have shaped future entries, series, and even entire industries. And this time I'm shooting to at least be right about some of them. Now to immediately test that hope. Final Fantasy VI. You can call it Final Fantasy III, but then you'll be half the man I am. In the catalog of Final Fantasy games, there are a few at the top that never budge when ranking the series. Rubbing shoulders with 7, 9, and 14 is Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI is the defining RPG of the 16-bit era. You can argue other games were better, and you might even win, but you probably would never have played those games if it weren't for Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI perfected existing elements of the series, introduced new ones, and gave many gamers their first taste of a truly in-depth storyline. While its impact may be a bit obscured nowadays, since its little brother started hogging the spotlight, anybody arguing the merit and value of Final Fantasy VI is somebody to be ignored. Plenty of the moments from Final Fantasy VI have become iconic by themselves. People who haven't played the game will recognize moments like the Opera House sequence or Kefka destroying the world. At the top of the list, though, is a moment that was never even intended by the developers. To tell the story, you only need to know about one of the various party members you can recruit in the game, Sabin. Sabin is a member of the Figaro royal family, recently de-dadded and leaving the kingdom in the care of his brother Edgar. Sabin is a monk, foregoing a weapon to fight with his bare hands, and his unique ability is called Blitz. Blitz essentially turns Sabin into a fighting game character, giving him access to a variety of different moves, including elemental attacks, and even support moves. The cost behind these moves is that they're not selected from a list like you were using magic. Rather, you select Blitz and then use traditional fighting game inputs. So, Rising Phoenix requires a half circle forward, while Aura Cannon needs a quarter circle back. The one we're focusing on, though, is the move Meteor Strike. Or, as you'd have to kill me to get me to stop calling it, Suplex. Suplex is Sabin's level 10 Blitz art, done by pressing XY, then down up. A single hit move that deals its full damage as long as there's only one enemy on the other side. Any more and the damage is nerfed. Much more important than that, though, is the flavor, as Sabin rushes across the screen, grabs the enemy, and drops them on their fucking neck, like this is the Championship Carnival, and Kenta Kobashi kicked out again! Where this becomes relevant, outside of how cool it is to do wrestling moves on dragons, is after you recruit Cyan to your party following Kefka poisoning Doma's water supply. While investigating the Phantom Forest, Sabin, Cyan, and Shadow, if you recruited him, get locked on a train filled with ghosts, with the only chance for escape coming from beating the train itself. The fight has your 3 party members running from the train as the solo boss. Already one of the most memorable set pieces in the entire game. And if you choose so, Sabin can have the best idea of his entire life.
Hey! 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 Go! Arrest! Fighting! 燃える闘志で Fighter! このリングかけろ!
Suplex is a usable move on the Ghost Train. And not only is doing it the best thing in the game, it's even a good idea, since the Ghost Train, as a solo enemy, will take the full suplex damage. From all the way back when the game came out to this very day, Sabin being able to suplex the Ghost Train has been one of the defining moments of Final Fantasy VI. When Square references back to Final Fantasy VI, one of the moments they choose to highlight is the Ghost Train suplex. Other RPGs will reference back to it, like in Sea of Stars. It's gotten countless pieces of fan art, animation, and callbacks, and it's persisted in every re-release of Final Fantasy VI that's come since. In fact, when the Pixel remaster of Final Fantasy VI was released, fans were in an uproar over how it was handled. Not that it was removed, but that when suplex was used on the train's sprite wouldn't flip like in the original. Square had to patch the remaster to make sure the train flipped like it did back on the Super Nintendo. This has even bled into tertiary material like the Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy crossover. The card Suplex was added in the expansion, which has two possible effects. Either deal 3 damage and banish a monster killed by it, or destroy an artifact. The art of the card is Sabin, rushing headlong, arms spread out to German suplex a train. And to top it all off, guess what the Ghost Train was made in the same expansion? An artifact. So through the mechanics of Magic the Gathering, you can suplex the train. All of this was thanks to an oversight during development. Probably. Okay, so we've gone a bit out of order here, explaining the impact of the glitch before explaining how the glitch works. That's because the Ghost Train is a little complicated. You could easily say that this isn't a glitch, and the devs simply intended for you to be able to suplex the train by design. It's not like you have to do anything busted to use the suplex on the Ghost Train. It's a selectable option from the start of the fight. I could definitely see agreeing with that, but I'd like to plead my case for a moment. So, my argument for the Ghost Train suplex being a glitch, or more accurately an oversight, comes from the properties of the move itself. Suplex is a strong move, but it has limits. Namely that there's a lot of enemies suplex straight up doesn't work on. Even if they're the only enemies you're fighting, suplex won't work on enemies like ghosts, whispers, and bombs. That list also includes a hefty number of the game's bosses. While there are exceptions, like the various colored dragons, bosses like Ultros, Kefka, and Siegfried are immune to suplexes. That's because the game has a specific flag in its code for each of the enemies to denote which ones can and can't be suplexed. As you probably guessed, Ghost Train doesn't have the flag. Despite many other undead and boss characters having the tag, Ghost Train, as an undead boss, doesn't, and is very peculiar for his lack of one. To express just how odd it is that the Ghost Train doesn't have the tag, you need look no further than the argument I just made. I very specifically mentioned ghosts, whispers, bombs, and Siegfried as non-suplexable targets. Because you want to know where you fight all those enemies for the first time? On the Ghost Train! So Ghost Train is suplexable, but the passengers aren't? I feel like suplexing a train counts as suplexing the passengers. At worst, I think it could be a case of the devs deciding it would be funny if the Ghost Train didn't have the flag, because then you could suplex a train. I think it's just as likely, though, that this was simply an oversight from the devs. They didn't rigorously check because of the surrounding encounters. You can't suplex the first boss on the Ghost Train, you probably can't suplex the other. Alright, break for lunch. If you're putting too much faith into the structural integrity of Final Fantasy VI, look no further than the game's best helmet, Edgar's Drill. Yeah, thanks to a glitch with Realm's sketch ability in the original Japanese version of the game, you could equip Edgar's Drill as a helmet. This itself would later be referenced in Dissidia and Crystal Chronicles with equipable drill helmets that are the highest level in the game. I truly believe that the Ghost Train wasn't initially intended as a target for suplex, but its inclusion made for a game-defining moment they wouldn't dare take out. Hey, does anybody want to explain to me why in the Pixel remaster they changed which monsters can and can't be suplexed? Making me play through the first 2 hours of Final Fantasy VI, and then making me play through the first 2 hours of Final Fantasy VI on SNES to make sure I'm not a liar. I now hate the Pixel remasters for a one-of-one reason. From inputs inspired by fighting games to the genuine article, the fighting genre is filled with glitches that have shaped their games and the genre as a whole. We've already talked about how Mortal Kombat characters, wave dashing, and even combos as a whole were inspired by, or discovered through glitching. But if you think it ends purely with gameplay, you'd be surprised just what can happen when the wrong wires get crossed. We're starting with this one in particular because there is some debate on whether or not it's a glitch, but most sources I could find treat it as a bug that got worked into the game itself. The King of Fighters. You wouldn't have your precious Smash Bros without it, so I better hear some clapping. Now, KOF certainly has its more usual examples of glitches that became features as the series went on. One as early as the very first entry with KOF 94. The character we're concerned with is the leader of Team Brazil, Hydern, leader of the Ikari Warriors, and sixth most important character by the time of KOF 15. There's a lot to like about Hydern, like how we share a birthday. But as far as glitches go, the one we care about concerns his special move, Stormbringer. This is a command grab that saps the opponent's health and adds it back to Hydern's. Especially boosted by the power meter, or looped with the infinite command grab glitch in 94, it's one of Hydern's best options. But believe it or not, you can make it even better. Due to a glitch, if you whiff Hydern's Moonslasher move prior to landing a Stormbringer, the damage scales to an absurd degree. With a full power meter, there's a chance that a slash-whiffed Stormbringer, or Final Bringer, will one-shot somebody from full health. Why this occurs is a mystery to everyone. It's unclear why the interaction happens, but it defines Hydern's game plan in KOF 94, and makes him a killer anchor character. As soon as KOF 95, it was removed though, and following that, Hydern's own appearances would get more and more sparse as he retired from fieldwork and let the other Ikari Warriors handle the KOF tournaments. He'd reappear in the Dream Match games, and maybe one before that to get him an updated sprite, but his big return would be as a DLC fighter in KOF 14. Not only would this update his design to the skin-tight suit he'd sport in 15, it would also call back to the 94 glitch. While the damage scaling is nowhere near as aggressive as it was back then, whiffing a Moonslasher before going for Stormbringer would still deal around 25% more damage. Funny enough, the actual glitch I wanted to discuss sees us sticking around Team Ikari Warriors, and in fact staying with the Hydern family, as we swap attention to his adopted daughter, Leona Hydern. An instant fan favorite when she was included in KOF 96, Leona adopts her dad's charge-based playstyle, and comes with a connection to the ever-expanding Orochi lore that made her super important to the ongoing plotline. By the time of her next game, Leona was a recognizable star of the story, and even upgraded to mini-boss status if you weren't already using her. By KOF 98, though, there was a weird glitch that had snuck its way into Leona's round start animations. When Leona was fighting a member of the Ikari Warriors, either Ralph, Clark, or Hydern, she's supposed to do a special salute that only plays for those characters. She'll do it for Clark or Hydern, but with Ralph, she does the intro exclusive to the comedy characters like Sai, Choi, and Iori, for some reason. That doesn't mean there isn't one salute left to give, though. And if you had to look at the entire roster and guess who it is, Chang would probably be your last guess. The big guy with the ball. Leona will salute him instead of Ralph because of a glitch, where the value determining which intro was used for which character was swapped. The military character Ralph and the comedy character Chang having their intended reactions swapped. At least I'm pretty sure that's the case. This one has been debated quite a lot in the KOF community on whether or not it was intended or not. Matters only complicating more, as in KOF 99, the two actually do salute each other. The consensus seems to be closer to a wave dashing explanation, where it was found during development, but intentionally left in. It even ends up fitting for Ralph specifically, since of the three, he's the least professional of the Ikari Warriors, so Leona would have a different reaction to seeing him than she would for Clark or Hydern. The official stance from SNK is that Leona salutes Chang out of respect for his overwhelming power, which, to Leona, means being able to swing a big ball around. When people found out about the interaction, though, the reception was way bigger than what was intended. KOF fans were instantly on board with the friendship between Leona and Chang, and it manifested in a big way. KOF 98's PlayStation release came with an art gallery filled with fan art to celebrate the end of the first major story arc. And among the piles of Kyo and Iori fan art was an overwhelming amount of Leona and Chang art. You have her trying to confess her feelings to Chang on a dock, her constructing a Mecha Chang, the two as Winnie the Pooh characters, all of this because somebody swapped two numbers. And to round out all the parallels between this and the original Hydern example, the two's relationship wouldn't properly be mentioned again until KOF 14, with them sharing a special intro where they salute each other. This is the first time Chang has acknowledged his creepy military stalker. Moving over to Capcom for the next glitch, and while we're going to end up at Street Fighter eventually, this glitch actually starts in a different Capcom game, Final Fight. Final Fight shares so much DNA with Street Fighter at this point, it's hard to even say the two are different series. Settings and characters from Final Fight have been bleeding into Street Fighter ever since the Alpha series, when characters like Guy, Rolento, and Sodom became playable. Added on later with additions like Poison, Hugo, Abigail, and Lucia, and the main setting of Street Fighter VI being Final Fight's Metro City. The Final Fight character, though, was easily their biggest change. Cody, the former white meat babyface of Final Fight, ending up on the wrong side of the law by the time of Alpha 3, and being completely redesigned as a prisoner with handcuffs and a new dirty fighting style. He's the only Street Fighter who does actual street fighting. I found a big rock. Fuck is Psycho Power gonna do against this? To sell his new criminal persona, Cody's moveset was crafted to include multiple dirty tricks, throwing rocks and kicking up dust being the simple ones. Cody's willing to go as far as breaking the laws of the game engine. Cody's punch-based super combo, Final Destruction, is a really odd-looking Ranbu-style super. Cody goes for a few punches, and then turns around before delivering a few more. This happens more and more depending on which button you press before finishing off with a normal-looking combo. Well, the move is actually a reference to a glitch from the original Final Fight. In Final Fight, there's a bug with the basic combo, where by stringing the first two hits together, quickly turning around and then turning back, you're able to keep the opponent in stun long enough to get back to a neutral position, meaning you're free to combo the opponent infinitely. This was translated into Alpha 3 by having the button you press simply have him loop the infinite longer. Light does it twice, medium 3 times, and heavy 4. Later versions of Final Destruction, when it became a cinematic ultra combo, would keep the idea of this, except the turn after the combo would become a wind-up for a big criminal upper. It would come back proper in Street Fighter 4's "F*** it, Street Fighter 5's coming out soon, balance was a mistake anyway" mode, Omega Mode. Here, Cody gets a brand new target combo that references his old Final Fight combo, including the option to whiff a punch and string the first two hits over and over again. It's not an infinite anymore, and considering what Omega Mode is, that's very unfair to poor Cody. The last fighting game glitch I wanted to cover is from Marvel vs. Capcom 2. A game that might be more glitch than fighting game. What do you call a fighting game where a character can leave the screen and go into orbit? I don't know, but I tell you what you can call one with two! The game is overflowing with characters to try and find out why Iron Man is better than all of them put together, but every once in a while you'll find a character with some quirk that makes them excel, if only in a god-tier free game. One of those characters is the Juggernaut, bitch. It's a shame I have to say this every time a large character who does big damage comes up, but the Juggernaut, bitch, is not a great character in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. In a game where infinites and movement make up a layer of top tiers very few characters can get past, a character who can string together maybe 3 hits max and moves like there's attacks on forward dashes isn't gonna be doing too good against Magneto and Storm. However, the Juggernaut, bitch, at least makes good on the promise of the character hitting hard. The Juggernaut has attack strength that very few others can match in short bursts. Why need combo when can hit hard? Unfortunately, even if his damage is high, it's not high enough to close the gap between him and even the low end of the viable tiers in the game. That is, until you delve into a bit of X-Men lore. See, Cain Marko, the Juggernaut's government name, isn't a mutant like the other X-Men. His power actually comes from the fact that an evil demon named Sidorak vibes with him, and made him the size of a 20-car pileup. This is represented in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with the Sidorak power-up, a buff for Juggernaut that gives his next hit a damage buff. This sadly only works on the very next hit the Juggernaut lands, so a multi-hitting move like his Juggernaut Head Crush only gets the buff on the first hit. That was, until a glitch was discovered by tagging out a Juggernaut who never used the powered-up hit. By using the buff, tagging out, and then tagging back in, Juggernaut won't lose the power-up. In fact, he'll have it enhanced way further than it was before. Now Juggernaut gets the buff on all of his moves forever. Instead of going away after one hit, the buff simply stays until one of three things happens. Either the Juggernaut dies, you deactivate it by manually activating Sidorak's power-up again, or the Juggernaut does this. Okay, things are different. The Sidorak glitch takes Juggernaut's damage from above average to terrifying, as now you have to be super careful fighting him because one head crush is enough to instantly kill lightweight characters like Strider, Wolverine, and Wolverine with bone in it. This property almost drags Juggernaut to relevance, but unfortunately, any testing with it would be hard, since the most available version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for a long time, the delisted ones, patched out the Sidorak glitch to keep Juggernaut from having anything. Come time for the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection though, and well, it still wasn't there. But then a little while after launch, in an update, a curious option was added to the EX settings. Along with enabling free play and adding the hidden colors, you now had the option to choose between the original arcade and updated Juggernaut. Either you can let him keep the power up on tag, or get rid of it. No other character in the game was treated so well as to have an individual option that only affects them. The Sidorak glitch was such an important part of the Juggernaut as a character that the devs decided to unpatch the game because it meant so much to him. Even though we're done with fighting games, we're not quite done talking about fighting, as our next example takes us to Zoo Tycoon 2. The Zoo Tycoon games are one of those touchstones that way more people have than they realize. Having the appearance of being educational, while still being well-made and fun simulator games, made for a memory that even if you never really played games growing up, you might still have. It could have been in a computer lab, on a friend or parent's computer. A lot of people have seen this stupid-looking monkey on the cover. Being a game that gave a child a modicum of control, though, meant that Zoo Tycoon fell into a similar trap any game like that does. They weren't building coasters like that to test the game's physics. So when constructing their zoos, they'd often subject their guests, or other animals, to the terrors of an uncaged bear. This is why Planet Zoo will never truly be a spiritual successor. Now, the animals picked for the job of Fight Pit Custodian were your usual suspects. Send in some elephants to stomp them to death, a pride of lions for the good old-fashioned bloodbath, God help their virtual souls if you had the Dino Dig DLC. Pretty standard stuff. However, once the players started pitting animals against each other, you'd quickly notice that there was one animal with very weird properties about it. The Emperor Penguin had the ability to kill almost any other animal with little to no trouble. Didn't matter if it was a giraffe or an orangutan, it would die. Now, I would like to say that it could kill anything, like I had initially thought, but some testing revealed that it still fell to a bigger predator animal. But other animals that would try to fight it, instant death. Now, how this glitch works has never been properly explained. Even the most dedicated Zoo Tycoon fans and wikis have never gone through the game's code to check for something like an aggression table that determines which animals win fights, or if certain animals have priority in fights. There is something we can look to for an explanation, though, and that's the game's beta. The June 2001 beta for Zoo Tycoon leaked to the Internet Archive and revealed a bunch of assets and interactions that didn't make it into the base game. Along with unused logos, menu designs, and animals, a strange interaction was found where penguins had their attack animations replaced with lions. Taking shots in the dark here, but I think something similar happened in the released game. Penguins had their attack properties replaced with a stronger animal that meant it was impossible for them to lose fights. From there, the legend of the killer penguin was born. Word spread around Zoo Tycoon fan forums that a surefire way to get rid of a customer giving you guff was to set him up in a fight with a penguin. Despite being one of the biggest in-jokes in the community, it was still a glitch. So by the time of Zoo Tycoon 2, the penguins were back to a more accurate level of aggression that we know of. However, it was an iconic part of the original games, and to just throw out something fans were so attached to would have been a shame. So when the DLC was being developed for Zoo Tycoon 2, the devs decided to wait until the last one to pay off what fans had been waiting for. After Endangered Species, African Adventure, Dino Danger, and Marine Mania was the pack Extinct Animals. This introduced animals that had long since gone extinct, like koalas, thylacines, and dodo birds, as well as ancient animals like short-faced bears, Gigantopithecus, and giant ground sloths. Baddest motherfucker to ever do it, Anomalocaris conspicuous by his absence, probably because he would have never let himself be kept in a zoo. Extinct animals can't be purchased in a traditional game. Instead, what you had to do was construct a research lab and hunt for fossils. After you collect enough, you reconstruct the skeleton, play a quick minigame, and get the animal you built. The quality of the animal, though, depends on your performance in the minigame. Do well, and your new animal will live a nice, long, healthy life. Do poorly, and you'll get one that's more susceptible to diseases, be less appealing to guests, and who will probably end up a fossil again before long. If you do bad enough in the minigame, though, you'll get one of 5 different animals. 4 are ambient animals, a type of animal you don't keep in the zoo, but who rather just sort of roam around the zoo. On rare occasions, though, you'll get an egg, one that you can put into an enclosure and wait to hatch. Once it does, you'll get a rockhopper penguin, but one with sharp fangs and red eyes and hyper-realistic blood. This is the killer penguin, an extinct species of human-sized penguins native to Madagascar that are the most dangerous predators to ever walk the face of the earth. In case it wasn't obvious, this isn't a real animal. They were made in reference to the original glitch in Zoo Tycoon, but Blue Fang Games really went all out with their length to make sure this wasn't a simple reskin of the rockhoppers. Killer penguins in Zoo Tycoon 2 are the only animals who accept other live animals as acceptable food sources. They'll eat from fish bowls and meat bowls, but if you want to get them a lot of food, just drop another animal in and that'll make them happy. That killer instinct is also another unique aspect to the killer penguins. They enjoy killing other animals. Other animals that kill animals will just sort of go about their day, but killer penguins consider that a highlight. Doing this is one of the only ways to increase the happiness of a killer penguin, as naturally they're aggressive and lower the quality of your zoo, as passerbys are terrified of them. The regular message that appears when somebody donates to your zoo is replaced when they donate to the killer penguin exhibit, instead hoping the penguin will leave them alone if they pay it. Killer penguins also require the largest amount of space in order to house properly. For the space of 2 killer penguins, you can house over 20 animals of any other species. On top of that, the dangers of them getting out make killer penguins the worst animals to have in your zoo. Even if having them is a pain, I doubt that if you're trying for one, you're really worried about keeping a good zoo. Killer penguins were made and meant to be a love letter to the fans of the game who attached themselves so closely to a quirk of that original game. And with this being the final DLC, and final time Blue Fang would work on a Zoo Tycoon game, it meant a lot to send the fans off happy. So is that why Kronos and Bloody Roar is top tier? Our last glitch is one that's so innocuous, so easily missable, and yet so important, not just to the gaming, but animation industry, that it deserves to be recognized as one of the most important glitches of all time. Halo. A series that revolutionized console gaming and gave us some unforgettable characters. The Master Chief, John 117, and the guy on the box. Simply put, Microsoft's first console would have died a death without Halo. I have nothing but faith in ToeJam and Earl 3, but Halo makes for a nice supporting player. Bungie's second ever console game changed how console shooters were made and created a culture around itself that's still present in modern gaming. I make my jokes, but really, how am I gonna undersell the importance of Halo? One thing nobody could have anticipated with Halo, though, was its use as a creative tool. Later games would add features like Forge Mode that allowed for the creation of custom game maps, but that was arguably only to accommodate what fans were already doing. Halo had become a tool used by creatives, using the in-game assets to create shorts, mini-movies, heck, even full-blown series using the game of Halo as the medium. This is what was known as a machinima, short for machine animation. Machinimas are the practice of making a film using the engine of a game, the tools provided, or outside tools in order to get it done. The process could be as simple as talking over footage of Mario, or as complicated as setting up multiple scenes across different game maps. Early games like Stunt Island, Doom, and Unreal Tournament were home to machinimas, with the earliest recorded example being Diary of a Camper, filmed in Quake back in 1996. Some games have these features baked in as the purpose of the game, like the movies. Others have to be taken out of game and edited independently, like The Sims or our subject Halo. A lot of these creations predate the creation of YouTube back in 2005, shared around either on personal websites, Halo forums, or forums dedicated to machinimas. In order to make their footage look the way they wanted it to, various tricks would have to be found to try to make them look as legit as possible, like zooming in the footage to hide the fact that the camera used in all these films was just another player with their heads-up display cropped out. Something that was hard to work around, though, was how the characters in this game worked. See, Halo might be a violent game, but not all of these animations were. They would often be simple shot-reverse shot conversations, given the complexity of getting these things to work in the first place. Using a first-person character as the camera presents a lot of difficulties, and at the center of that was the purpose of Halo, shooting things. If the scene calls for two characters to just be casually talking, they'll still have their guns pointed at each other's heads, which looks awkward. This is where the glitch comes in. In the original Halo Combat Evolved, looking all the way down would force your head to instantly snap down to a neutral position, while keeping your hands down where they were. This gives the actors the look like they're in a more neutral position, especially when mixed with the small arms like the two pistols in the game. This allowed scenes to look more natural. If the characters needed to have their guns drawn, they could. If they didn't, just keep the head down and you'd be able to have more of a casual scene. That was vital to series that focused more on dialogue than action. And it proved invaluable for the most popular machinima series of all time, Red vs. Blue. Red vs. Blue by Rooster Teeth is to machinimas what Halo was to shooters. When the series came out in 2003, it exposed more people than ever to the format, and gained a following no one else had ever seen before. It's so synonymous with the format of machinimas, a lot of people think they invented it. The series had an immediate impact, and was noticed by Bungie themselves, working with the team at Rooster Teeth and including dozens of references to the series over their run of Halo games. Maps would include references to famous lines from the show on the maps those lines were set on. Achievements would directly name the series. In this mural, made for Halo's 25th anniversary, you can see the characters Simmons and Griff, rendered in a lower quality style like the first Halo game, posed like they were using the glitch. Rooster Teeth would produce promotional content for the Halo series, appearing on a collector's edition DVD for Halo 2. Even after the series switched hands to 343 Studios, the love never wavered. Speaking of Halo 2 though, this presented a problem for the production of Red vs. Blue and other Halo machinimas in its style. The glitch that allowed for casual gun holding was removed, meaning now everybody was going to be a bit more on edge. That would have been the case, except that the glitch was worked in specifically as a feature from Halo 2 onwards. In Halo 2, you're able to enter a state called Alert Carry. This would bring the gun down out of view and give you a stance resembling the original glitch, making it possible to continue producing machinimas with greater ease, thanks to it not being a glitch and rather an intended feature. This would be carried into later games, though not available online and requiring more complex button inputs to pull off. It essentially became a cheat code that became easier to perform as time went on, up to the latest Halo games like 5 and Infinite mapping it directly to a key on the keyboard. Other additions to the Halo series, like the theater, would make Red vs. Blue's production even easier, allowing them to let the cameraman take his helmet off and get more cinematic shots than would have been possible before. The people entertained by Red vs. Blue, the people who got work thanks to Red vs. Blue, the people inspired by Red vs. Blue, without this series, the landscape of online content creation and independent animation would have been completely different. And I don't think it's unfair to say worse off without it. And all of that progress and all of that work would have never been possible if a Bungie employee noticed that your head looked a little weird when looking down.